It's your girl, Morgan Renee Myers, tuning in with another story time with more of my reading. It's been a while. I missed you guys. Let me get my lighting together. Okay. So today I'm starting a new book, and Lord willing, I will continue to read out of it all the way through like I did the other books. If you're not already, make sure that you go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. I'm recording both from Facebook and YouTube right now. My YouTube is my name, Morgan Myers, and you will see the red logo with the yellow M inside. And I will also link it down in the comments. But peace. So I'm gonna just hop right into it. So this book is called Their Eyes Were Watching God. Some of you may have heard of it and seen the movie with Halle Berry and Michael Ealy, and it was a pretty good movie. But it's been years since I saw it, and I've never read the book. So sometimes the movies don't never really be like what the book that he had and stuff. So Zora Neale Hurston, she was born in 1891. And she died in 1960, and a lot of her works didn't really get discovered until after she passed away. And I know this because we did a little bit of studying on her in some of my African American poetry classes in college. She also was a Zeta, so she my soror. So, anyways, all right, let's get into it. Usually, I read everything in the beginning, the forwards and all that, but today I'm not gonna do all that. I'm just gonna hop to the first chapter. So, welcome in. Kick back and relax as we listen to Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. Chapter 1. Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. For some, they come in with the tide. For others, they sail forever on the horizon, never out of sight, never landing until the watcher turns his eyes away in resignation, his dreams mocked to death by time. That is the life of them. Now, women forget all those things they don't want to remember and remember everything they don't want to forget. The dream is the truth. Then they act and do things accordingly. The beginning of this was a woman, and she had come back from burying the dead. Not the dead sick and ailing with friends at the pillow and the feet. She had come back from the sodden and the bloated, the sudden dead, their eyes flung wide open in judgment. The people all saw her come because it was sundown. The sun was gone, but he had left his footprints in the sky. It was the time for sitting on porches beside the road. It was the time to hear things and talk. These sitters had been tongueless, earless, eyeless conveniences all day long. Mules and other brutes had occupied their skins, but now the sun and the boss man were gone, so the skins felt powerful and human. They became lords of sounds and lesser things. They passed nations through their mouths. They sat in judgment. Seeing the woman as she was made them remember the envy they had stored up from other times. So they chewed up the back parts of their minds and swallowed with relish. They made burning statements with questions, killing tools out of laughs. It was mass cruelty, a mood come alive. Words walking without masters, walking all together like harmony in a song. What's she doing coming back here in them overalls? Can't she find no dress to put on? Where's that blue satin dress she left here in? Where all that money her husband took and died and left her? Where that old 40-year-old woman doing with her hair swinging down her back like some young gal? Where she left that young lad of a boy she went off here with, thought she was going to marry? Where he left her? What he done with all her money? Betcha he off with some gal so young she ain't even got no hairs. Why she don't stay in her class? When she got to where they were, she turned her face on the bander log and spoke. They scrambled a noisy good evening and left their mouths setting open and their ears full of hope. Her speech was pleasant enough, but she kept walking straight on to her gate. The porch couldn't talk for looking. The men noticed her firm buttocks, like she had grapefruits in her hip pockets, the great rope of her black hair swinging to her waist and unraveling in the wind like a plume. Then her pugnacious breast trying to bore holes in her shirt. They, the men, were saving with the mind what they lost with the eye. The woman took the faded shirt and muddy overalls and laid them away for remembrance. It was a weapon against her strength, and if it turned out of no significance, still it was a hope that she might fall to their level someday. But nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even thought to swallow spit until after her gate slammed behind her. Pearl Stone laughed real hard because she didn't know what else to do. She fell all over Mrs. Sumpkins while she laughed. Mrs. Sumpkins snorted violently and sucked her teeth. Hmm. Y'all let her worry you. You ain't like me. I ain't got to study about. I ain't got her to study about. If she ain't got no manners enough to stop and let folks know what she making now, let her go on. She ain't even worth talking after, Lulu Moss drawled through her nose. She sits high, but she looks low. That's what I say about these old women running after young boys. Phoebe Watson hitched her rocking chair forward before she spoke. Well, nobody don't know if it's anything to tell or not. Me, I'm her best friend and I don't know. Maybe us don't know into things like you do, but we all know how she went away from here and us show seen her come back. Tain't no use in you trying to cloak no old woman like Janie Starks, Phoebe, friend or no friend. At that, she ain't she ain't so old as some of y'all that's talking. She's way past 40 to my knowledge, Phoebe. No more than 40 at the outside. She's way too old for a boy like TK ain't been no boy for some time. He's around 30 his own self. Don't care what it is. She could stop and say a few words with us. She act like we done something to her. Pearlstone complained. We ain't been doing wrong. You mean you mad because she didn't stop and tell us all her business? Anyhow, what you ever know her to do so bad that y'all make out? The worst thing I ever know her to do was taking a few years off of her age, and they ain't never harmed nobody. Y'all makes me tired. The way you talking, you think these folks in this town didn't do nothing in the bed except praise the Lord. You have to excuse me, cause I'm about to go make her some supper. Phoebe stood up sharply. I know that's right. Hey y'all, country. Okay, from what I remember from the movie, I think it started out like she walking through town. She had just came back from wherever, and she's older by a few or 10 years of the young man that she had last went off with, and she had a husband that may have died. And she had money and stuff, so these women just sitting on the porch gossiping because she didn't came back and they don't know the tea. Something on my lip, y'all. A little bump. All right. All right, so the way you talking, you think the folks in this town didn't do nothing in the bed except praise the Lord. You have to excuse me, because I'm about to go take her some supper. Phoebe stood up sharply. Don't mind us, Lulu smiled. Just go right ahead. Us can mind your house for you till you get back. My supper is done. You better go see how she feel. You can let the rest of us know. Lord, Pearl agreed. I done scorched up that little meat and bread too long to talk about. I can stay away from home as long as I please. My husband ain't fussy. Oh, Phoebe, if you's ready to go, I could walk over there with you, Miss Sumpkins volunteered. It's sort of dusking down dark. The booger man might catch you. No, I thank you. Nothing could catch me these few steps I'm going. Anyhow, my husband tell me say no first class booger would have me. If she got anything to tell you, you'll hear it. Phoebe hurried on off with a covered bowl in her hands. She left the porch, pelting her back with unasked questions. They hoped the answers were cruel and strange. When she arrived at the place, Phoebe Watson didn't go in by the front gate and down the palm walk to the front door. She walked around the fence corner and went into the intimate gate with her heaping plate of mulatto rice. Janie must be round that side. She found her sitting on the steps of the back porch with the lamps all filled and the chimneys clean. Hello, Janie. How you coming? Oh, pretty good. I'm trying to soak some of the tiredness and the dirt out of my feet. She laughed a little. I see you is. Gal, you sure looks good. You looks like you's your own daughter. They both laughed. Even with them overalls on, you shows your womanhood. Go on. You must think I brought you something when I ain't brought home a thing but myself. That's a gracious plenty. Your friends wouldn't want nothing better. I'll take that flattery off of you, Phoebe, because I know it's from the heart. Janie extended her hand. Good Lord, Phoebe. Ain't you never going to give me that little rations you brought me? I ain't had a thing on my stomach today except in my hand. They both laughed easily. Give it here and have a seat. I know you be hungry. No time to be hunting stove wood after dark. My mulatto rice ain't so good this time. Not enough bacon grease, but I reckon it'll kill hunger. I'll tell you in a minute, Janie said, lifting the cover. Gal, it's too good. You switches a mean fanny round in the kitchen. That ain't much to eat, Janie, but I'm allowed to have something sure enough good tomorrow because you done come. Janie ate heartily and said nothing. The very colored cloud dust that the sun had stirred up in the sky was settling by slow degrees. Here, Phoebe, take your old plate. I ain't got a bit of use for an empty dish. That grub show come in handy. Phoebe laughed at her friend's rough joke. You's just as crazy as you ever was. Hand me that wash rag on that chair by you, honey. Let me scrub my feet. She took the cloth and rubbed vigorously. Laughter came to her from the big road. Well, I see Mouth Almighty is still sitting in the same place, and I reckon they got me up in their mouth now. Yes, indeed. You know, if you pass on people and don't speak to suit them, they got to go way back in your life. They know more about you than you know yourself. An envious heart makes a treacherous ear. They done heard about you just what they hoped done happen. If God don't think no more about them than I do, they's a lost ball in the high grass. I hears what they say because they just will collect round my porch because it's on the big road. My husband gets so sick of them, sometimes he makes them all get for home. Sam is right too. They just wearing out your sitting chairs. Yeah, Sam say most of them goes to church and they'll be sure to rise in judgment. That's the day that every secret is supposed to be made known. That's to be there and to hear. They wants to be there and hear it all. Sam is too crazy. You can't stop laughing when you around him. He said he aims to be there himself so he can find out who stole his corncob pipe. Phoebe, that Samuel just won't quit, crazy thing. Most of these zigaboos is so head up over your business till they liable to hurry theyself to judgment to find out about you if they don't know soon. You better make haste and tell them about you and TK getting married and if he taking all your money and went off with some young gal and where he is now, where at is all your clothes that you got to come back here in overalls. Dang, they nosy. What ain't telling what I say. You can okay. I don't bother. I don't mean to bother with telling them nothing, Phoebe. Tain't worth the trouble. You can tell them what I say if you wants to. That's just the same as me, 'cause my tongue is my friend's mouth. If you so desire, I'll tell them what you tell me to tell them. To start off with, people like them waste too much time putting their mouth on things they don't know nothing about. Now they got to look into me loving tea cake and see whether it was done right or not. They don't know if life is a mess of a cornmeal. They don't know if life is a mess of cornmeal dumplings and if love is a bed quilt. So long as they get a name to gnaw on, they don't care whose it is and what about, especially if they can make it sound like evil. If they wants to see and know, they don't come kiss and be why they don't come kiss and be kissed. I could then sit down and tell them things. I've been a delegate to the big association of life. Yes, sir. The Grand Lodge, the big convention of living is just where I've been this year, and half y'all ain't seen me. They sat there in the fresh young darkness close together, Phoebe eager to feel and do through Janie, but hating to show her zest for fear it might be thought mere curiosity. Janie, full of that oldest human longing, self revelation. Phoebe held her tongue for a long time, but she couldn't help moving her feet. So Janie spoke. They don't need to worry about me and my overalls, long as I still got my $900 in the bank. T Cake got me into wearing them, following behind him. T Cake ain't wasted up no money of mine, and he ain't left me for no young gal neither. He give me every consolation in the world. He'd tell him so too if he were here, if he wasn't gone. Phoebe dilated all over with eagerness. TK gone? Yeah, Phoebe. Tea cake is gone. And that's the only reason you see me back here, cause I ain't got nothing to make me happy no more where I was at, down in the Everglades there, down on the muck. It's hard for me to understand what you mean the way you tell it, and then again, I'm hard to understanding at times. No, tain't nothing like you might think. So tain't no use in me telling you something unless I give you the understanding to go along with it. Unless you see the fur, a mink skin ain't no different from a coon hide. Look at here, Phoebe. Is Sam waiting on you for his supper? It's already in waiting. If he ain't got sense enough to eat it, that's his hard luck. Well, then we can sit right where we is and talk. I got the house all opened up to let this breeze get a little catching. Phoebe, we've been kissing friends for 20 years, so I depend on you for a good thought, and I'm talking to you from that standpoint. Time makes everything old, so the kissing, young, dark became a monstropolis old thing while Janie talked. Hmm. Well, that's the end of chapter 1. Let's see. I'm gonna try to make it through chapter 2. This language chap is really something. All right. Chapter 2. Janie saw her life like a great tree in leaf with the things suffered, things enjoyed, things done and undone. Dawn and doom was in the branches. I know exactly what I gotta tell you, but it's hard to know where to start. I ain't never seen my papa, and I didn't know if I'ma did my what? Hold on, cause they got periods in places I don't think they meant to put them. I ain't never seen my papa, and I didn't know if I'ma did. My mama neither. She was gone from around here long before I was big enough to know. My grandma raised me. My grandma and the white folks she worked with. She had a house out in the backyard, and that's where I was born. They was quality white folks up there in West Florida named Washburn. She had 4 grandchildren on the place, and all of us played together, and that's how come I never called my grandma nothing but Nanny, because that's what everybody on the place called her. Nanny used to catch us in our devilment and lick every youngin' on the place, and Miss Washburn did the same. I reckon they never hit us a lick amiss, because them 3 boys and us 2 girls was pretty aggravating, I expect. I was with them white children so much till I didn't know I wasn't white till I was around 6 years old. Wouldn't have found it out then, but a man come along taking pictures, and without asking anybody, Shelby, that was the oldest boy, told him to take a told he told him to take us. Around a week later, the man brought the picture for Miss Washburn to see and pay him, which he did. They give us all a good licking. So when we looked at the picture and everybody got pointed out, there wasn't nobody left except a real dark little girl with long hair standing by Eleanor. That's where I was supposed to be, but I couldn't recognize that dark child as me. So I asked, "Where's me?" I don't see me. Everybody laughed, even Miss Washburn. Miss Nellie, the mama of the children who come back home after her husband dead, she pointed to the dark one and said, "That's you, Alphabet. Don't you know your own self?" They all used to call me Alphabet because so many people had done named me different names. I looked at the picture a long time and seen it was my dress and my hair, so I said, "Oh, I'm a color." Then they all laughed real hard, but before I seen the picture, I thought I was just like the rest. Us lived there having fun till the children at school got to teasing me about living in the white folks' backyard. There was a naughty head gal named Mayrella that used to get mad every time she looked at me. Miss Washburn used to dress me up in these clothes her grandchildren didn't need no more, which still was better than what the rest of her colored children had. And then she used to put hair ribbon on my head for me to wear. That used to rile Mayrella up a lot. She would pick at me all the time and put some others up to do the same. They push me away from the ring plays and make out they couldn't play with nobody that lived on premises. Then they tell me not to be taking on over my looks because they mama told them about the hound dogs hunting my papa all night long. But Mr. Washburn and the sheriff putting the bloodhounds on the trail to catch my papa for what he done to mama. They didn't tell about how he was seen trying to get in touch with my mama later on so he could marry her. No, they didn't talk that part of it at all. They made it sound real bad so as to crumble my feathers. None of them didn't even remember what his name was, but they all know the bloodhound part by heart. Nanny didn't love to see me with my head hung down, so she figured it would be more better for me if us had a house. She got the land and everything, and Miss Washburn helped out a whole heap with things. Phoebe's hungry listening helped Janie to tell the story. So she went on, thinking back to her young years and explaining them to her friend in soft, easy phrases, while all around the house the nighttime put on flesh and blackness. She thought a while and decided that her conscious life had commenced at Nanny's gate. On a late afternoon, Nanny had called her to come inside the house because she had spied Janie letting Johnny Taylor kiss her over the grate post. It was a spring afternoon in West Florida. Janie had spent most of the day under a blossoming pear tree in the backyard. She had been spending every minute that she could steal from her chores under that tree for the last 3 days. That was to say, ever since the first tiny bloom had opened. It had called her to come and gaze on a mystery. From barren brown stems to glistening leaf buds, from the leaf buds leaf buds to snowy virginity of bloom, it stirred her tremendously. How? Why? It was like a flute song forgotten in another existence and remembered again. What? How? Why? The singing she heard that had nothing to do with her ears. The rose of the world was breathing out smell. It followed her through all her waking moments and caressed her in her sleep. It connected itself with other vaguely felt matters that had struck her outside observation and buried themselves in her flesh. Now they emerged and quested about her consciousness. She was stretched out on her back beneath the pear tree, soaking in the alto chant of the visiting bees, the gold of the sun, and the breath of the breeze, when the inaudible voice of it all came to her. She saw a dust bearing bee sink into the sanctum of a bloom. The thousand sister, what? Cal? Okay, I don't know this word. CalYxes. Hold on, I might need to get my little phone for my Google. One moment. Oh, this phone look like it's dead. Okay, let's look this word up. Okie dokie. Okay, what's this word? Sister Calixis? Oh, let me go turn on my Wi-Fi. Sister Cal. Okay, let's use context clues. She saw a dust bearing bee sink into the sanctum of a bloom. The thousand sister Calixes? Because I don't have the right password for my Wi Fi. I don't think. Bible, can you Google a word for me? It's Caly. Hold on, my assistant is helping me real quick because I don't like reading words and keep going in the story. Like I'm trying to use context clues. So she saw a dust-bearing bee sink into the sanctum of a bloom. The thousand Caly Xes Xes. Yes, what's that mean? The what of a flower? The sepals. The hell is that? Okay, well, it got something to do with flowers. This thing on my lip is. It forms a protective layer around the flower and bud. Okay, look it up on your own time. So she saw dust bearing bees sink into the sanctum of a bloom, the thousand sister calyxes arch to meet the love embrace and the ecstatic shiver of the tree from root to tiniest branch, creaming in every blossom and frothing with delight. So this was a marriage. She had been summoned to behold a revelation. Then Janie felt a pain remorseless sweet that left her limp and languid. After a while, she got up from where she was and went over to the little garden field entire. She was seeking confirmation of the answer for all other creations except herself. She felt an answer seeking for her way. She was reminded that her grandmother was home with a sick headache. She was lying across the bed asleep, so Janie tipped on out of the front door. Oh, to be a pear tree, any tree in bloom, with kissing bees singing of the beginning of the world. She was 16. She had glossy leaves and bursting buds, and she wanted to struggle with life, but it seemed to elude her. Where were the singing bees for her? Nothing on the place nor in Grandma's house answered her. She searched as much of the world as she could from the top of the front steps and then went on down to the front gate and leaned over to gaze up and down the road, looking, waiting, breathing short with impatience, waiting for the world to be made. Through pollinated air, she saw a glorious being come up the road. In her former blindness, she had known him as shiftless Johnny Taylor, tall, lean. That was before the golden dust of pollen had beglamored his rags and her eyes. So what I'm getting from this, because this book is talking very poetically, I'm getting that, she's in puberty mode, and she's witnessing like life and creation. She even mentions the bees being married and all this and that when they're pollinating flowers and stuff like that. So it just sounds like she's dealing with puberty. In the last stages of Nanny's sleep, she dreamed of voices far off but persistent and gradually coming nearer. Janie's voice. Janie talking in whispery snatches with a male voice she couldn't quite place. That brought her wide awake. She bolted upright and peered out the window and saw Johnny Taylor lacerating her Janie with a kiss. Janie! The old woman's voice was so lacking in command and reproof, so full of crumbling dissolution, that Janie half believed that Nanny had not seen her, so she extended herself outside of her dream and went inside of the house. That was the end of her childhood. Nanny's head and face looked like the standing roots of some old tree that had been torn away by a storm. Foundation of ancient power that no longer mattered. The cooling Palma Christi leaves that Janie had bound about her mother's head with a white rag had wilted down and become part and parcel of the woman. Her eyes didn't bore and pierce. They diffused and melted Janie, the room, and the world into one comprehension. Janie, you's a woman now, so no, Nanny, no, I ain't no real woman yet. The thought was too new and heavy for Janie. She fought it away. Nanny closed her eyes and nodded a slow, weary affirmation many times before she gave it voice. Yeah, Janie, you's got your womanhood on you, so I might as well tell you what I've been saving up for a spell. I wants to see you married right away. Me? Married? No, Nanny, no ma'am. What I know about a husband? What I seen just now is plenty for me, honey. I don't want no trashy nigga, no breath and britches like Johnny Taylor using your body to wipe his foots on. Nanny's word made Janie's kiss across the gatepost seem like a manure pile after a rain. Look at me, Janie. Don't sit there with your head hung down. Look at your old grandma. Her voice began snagging on the prongs of her feelings. I don't want to be talking to you like this. Fact is, I done been on my knees to the maker many the time asking please for him me the burden too not to make the burden too heavy for me to bear. Nanny, I didn't mean nothing bad. That's what makes me scared. You don't mean no harm. You don't even know what harm is at. I'm old now. I can't always be guiding your feet from harm and danger, and I wants to see you married right away. Who I'm going to marry offhand like that? I don't know nobody. The Lord will provide. He know I done boiled a burden in the heat other day. Somebody done spoke to me about you long time ago. I ain't said nothing because that wasn't the way I placed you. I wanted you to school out and pick from a higher bush and a sweeter berry, but that ain't your idea, I see. Nanny, who? Who that been asking you for me? Brother Logan Killix. He a damn good man too. No, Nanny, no ma'am. Is that what he been hanging around here for? He look like some old skull head in the graveyard. The older woman sat bolt upright and put her feet to the feel around with first one man and then another one, huh? You wants to make me suck the same sorrow your mama did, eh? My old head ain't gray enough. My back ain't bowed enough to suit you. The vision of Logan Killix was desecrating the pear tree, but Janie didn't know how to tell Nanny that. She merely hunched over and powdered on the floor. Janie. Yes, ma'am. You answer me when I speak. Don't you sit there pouting with me after all I done went through for you. She slapped the girl's face violently and forced her head back so that their eyes met and struggled. Goodness. With her hand lifted for the second blow, she saw the huge tear that welled up from Janie's heart and stood in each eye. She saw the terrible agony, and the lips tightened down to hold back the cry and desisted. Instead, she brushed back the heavy hair from Janie's face and stood there suffering and loving and weeping internally for both of them. Come to your grandma, honey. Sit in my lap like you used to. Your nanny wouldn't harm her hair on your head. She don't want nobody else to do it either if she can help it. Honey, the white man is the ruler of everything as far as I've been able to find out. Maybe it's some place way off in the ocean where the black man is in power, but we don't know nothing but what we see. So the white man throw down the load and tell the nigger man to pick it up. He pick it up because he have to, but he don't tote it. He hand it to his women folks. The nigger woman is the mule in the world so far as I can see. I've been praying for it to be different with you. Lord, Lord, Lord. For a long time, she sat rocking with the girl held tightly to her sunken breast. Janie's long legs dangled over one arm of the chair, and the long braids of her hair swung low on the other side. Nanny half sung, half sobbed a running chant prayer over the head of the weeping girl. Lord have mercy. It was a long time on the way, but I reckon it had to come. Oh Jesus, do Jesus. I done the best I could. Finally, they both grew calm. Janie, how long you been allowing Johnny Taylor to kiss you? Only this one time, Nanny. I don't love him at all. What made me do it is taint and killix I want you to have, baby. I ain't getting old, honey. I am done old. One morning soon now, the angel with the sword is going to stop by here. The day and the hour is hid from me, but it won't be long. I asked the Lord when you was an infant in my arms to let me stay here till you got grown. He didn't spare me to see the day. My daily prayer now is to let these golden moments rolls on a few days longer till I see you safe in life. Let me wait, Nanny, please, just a little bit more. Don't think I don't feel with you, Janie, because I do. I couldn't love you no more if I had felt your birth pains myself. Fact of the matter, I loves you a whole heap of more. I do your mama, the one I did birth. But you got to take into consideration you ain't no everyday child like most of them. You ain't got no papa. You might just as well say no mama for the good she do you. You ain't got nobody but me. And my head is old and tilted towards the grave. Neither can you stand alone by yourself. The thought of you being kicked around from pillar to post is a hurting thing. Every tear you drop squeezes a cup of blood out of my heart. I got to try and do for you before my head is cold. A sobbing sigh burst out of Janie. The old woman answered her with little soothing pats on the head, on the hand. You know, honey, us colored folks is branches without roots, and that makes things come round in queer ways. You in particular. I was born back doing slavery, so it wasn't for me to fulfill my dreams of what a woman ought to be and do. That's one of the holdbacks of slavery, but nothing can stop you from wishing. You can't beat nobody down so low till you rob 'em of their will. I didn't want to be used as a work ox and a brood sow, and I didn't want my daughter used that way neither. It sure wasn't my will for things to happen like they did. I even hated the way you was born. But all the same, I said, thank God I got another chance. I wanted to preach a great sermon about colored women sitting on high, but there wasn't no pulpit for me. Freedom found me with a baby daughter in my arms, so I said I'd take a broom and a cook pot and throw up a highway through the wilderness for her. She would expound what I felt. But somehow she got lost off of the highway, and next thing I know, here you was in the world. So whilst I was tending you of nights, I said I saved the text for you. I've been waiting for a long time, Janie, but nothing I've been through ain't too much if you just take a stand on higher ground like I dreamed. Old Nanny sat there rocking Janie like an infant and thinking back and back. Mind pictures brought feelings, and feelings dragged out dramas from the hollows of her heart. That morning on the big plantation close to Savannah, a rider came in a gallop. A rider come in a gallop telling about Sherman taking Atlanta. Mars Robertson had been killed at Chickamauga. So the rest of the gray-headed men and young boys to drive the Yankees back into Tennessee. They was all cheering and crying and shouting for the men that was riding off. I couldn't see nothing because your mama wasn't but a week old and I was flat on my back. But pretty soon as he left on, he forgot something and run into my cabin and made me let down my hair for the last time. He sort of wrapped his hand in it, pulled my big toe like he always done, and was gone after the rest like lightning. I heard him give one last whoop for him. Then the house and the quarters got sober and silent. It was the cool of the evening when Mistus came walking in my door. She throwed the door wide open and stood there looking at me out of her eyes and her face, looking like she living through 100 years in January without one day of spring. She come stood over me in the bed. Nanny, I come to see that baby you born. I come to see that baby of yours. I tried not to feel the breeze off her face, but it got so cold in there that I was freezing to death under the kivers. That's supposed to be covers, Lord, she country under the kivers. So I couldn't move right away like I aimed to, but I knowed I had to make haste to do it. You better get that kiver off of that youngin' and that quick, she clashed at me. Look like you don't know who is mistress on this plantation, madam, but I aims to show you. By that time, I had managed to uncover my baby enough for her to see the head and face. Nigga, what's your baby doing with gray eyes and yellow hair? She began to slap my jaws every which way. I never felt the first ones because I was too busy getting the cover back over my child, but them last lick burnt me like fire. I had too many feelings to tell which one to follow, so I didn't cry and didn't do nothing else. But then she kept on asking me how come my baby look white. She asked me that maybe 25 or 30 times, like she got something to say that and couldn't help herself. So I told her I don't know nothing but what I'm told to do, because I ain't nothing but a nigga and a slave. Instead of pacifying her like I thought, she looked like she got madder. But I reckon she was tired and wore out because she didn't hit me no more. She went to the foot of the bed and wiped her hands on her handkerchief. I wouldn't dirty my hands on you, but first thing in the morning, the overseer will take you to the whipping post and tie you down on your knees and cut the hide off of your yellow back. 100 lashes with a raw hide on your bare back. I'll have you whipped till the blood run down your heels. I mean to count the licks myself, and if it kills you, I'll stand a loss. Anyhow, as soon as that brat is one more throat, I'm going to sell it off of this place. She flounced on and off and left her wintertime with me. I know my body wasn't healed, but I couldn't consider that. In the back dark, I wrapped my baby the best I knowed how and made it to the swamp by the river. I know the place was full of moccasins and other biting snakes, but I was more scared of what was behind me. I hid in there all day and night and suckled the baby every time she started to cry for fear somebody might hear her and I get found. I ain't saying a friend or two didn't feel my care. And then the good Lord seen to it that I wasn't taken. I don't see how come my milk didn't kill my child with me so scared and worried all the time. The noise of the owls scared me. The limbs of them cypress trees took to crawling and moving around after dark. And two, three times I hear panthers prowling around. But nothing never hurt me because the Lord know how I was. Then one night, I heard the big guns booming like thunder. It kept up a long night. It kept up all night long. And the next morning, I could see a big ship at a distance and a great stirring around. So I wrapped Leafy up in moss and fixed her good in a tree and picked my way on down to the landing. The men was all in the blue. What you why you left your baby in a tree? I could see a big ship at a distance and a great stirring around. So I wrapped Leafy up in moss and fixed her good in a tree and picked my way on down to the landing. Wow. The men was all in blue, and I heard people say Sherman was coming to meet the boats in Savannah, and all of us slaves was free. So I run and got my baby and got in quotation with the people and found the big bell rang in Atlanta, and all the men in gray uniforms had to go to more. So then we know we was free. I wouldn't marry nobody though. I could have a heap of times because I didn't want nobody mistreating my baby. So I got with some good white people and come down here in West Florida to work and make the sun shine on both sides of the street for Leafy. My madam helped me with her just like she been doing with you. I put her in school, and when it got so it was a school to put her in, I was expecting to make a school teacher out of her. But one day she didn't come home at the usual time, and I waited and waited, but she never come all that night. I took a lantern and I went around asking everybody, but nobody ain't seen her. The next morning she come crawling in on her hands and knees, a sight to see. That school teacher had and hid her in the woods all night long, and he done raped my baby and run off just before day. She was only 17, and something like that to happen. Lord of mercy. Look like I can see it all over again. It was a long time before she was well, and by that time we know you was on the way. And after you was born, she took to drinking liquor and staying out nights. Couldn't get her to stay here and nowhere else. Lord knows where she is now. She ain't dead because I know it by my feelings, but sometimes I wish she was at rest. And Janie, maybe it wasn't much, but I done the best I can with you. I racked and scraped and brought this little piece of land so you wouldn't have to stay in the white folks' yard and tuck your head before other children in school. That was all right when you was little, but when you got big enough to understand things, I wanted you to look upon yourself. And I don't want your feathers always crumpled by folks throwing up things in your face. And I can't die easy thinking maybe the men folks, white or black, is macking a spit cup out of you. Have some sympathy for me. Put me down easy, Janie. I'm a cracked plate. All right. Well, that's the end of chapter 2. So we will tune in on another chapter. Peace, love, and light.